Welcome into the Big Little Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. Week 4 of the NFL is over, as well as week 5 of college football. So that's what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to start with college football, reacting a little bit to the AP poll rankings. Did you have anything that stood out from the recent rankings?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think that the fact that Alabama is not over Texas at this point is a little bit curious because the fact that Texas hasn't played anybody. Alabama gets a top 5 win in Georgia on the road at Georgia, a team that hadn't lost there in multiple years, had a 33-game home winning streak, the longest in college football. Them only rising up to number 10 in the country after putting on such a good performance. To be fair, Georgia handed them the game a little bit towards the end there. They definitely had multiple opportunities to win that game and just couldn't pull it out. But still, I think that win means enough to at least jump Texas, even though Alabama was sitting at 17 before. And then moving off that, Penn State being still in the top 7-ish. I think that Indiana definitely could have, with their win so far this season, could have been above them. And I think that to that extent, if Alabama was over Texas, they can definitely be above Penn State right now. They've had dominant performances in the games that they have played against minimal competition, but a whiteout at home. I feel like for James Franklin and the confidence of that team, you really want to win that game, especially at home in Happy Valley. And you just didn't really see enough out of Penn State. Them being at 7 isn't completely absurd, but I think that they could have definitely been a little bit lower in these rankings.
Yeah, Penn State being at 7 and Texas being at 9, I think just both have to do with who they lost to. But I'm not a huge fan of either of them being as high as they are right now. I agree with the Alabama take. I do think that they should be higher, but also in the same vein, maybe Florida State shouldn't have dropped all the way down to 18, because I think you also kind of partially want to respect that head-to-head. Obviously, Florida State lost to Virginia, which is considered a much worse foe, but Virginia's now ranked in the top 25, and they've got a little bit of momentum building. So I think that there's some inconsistencies within this rankings that definitely stick out to me. One of the biggest things that I definitely know that we're going to touch on a little bit later is Oregon receiving 16 first place votes. I think now, with how poorly Texas played through their first 4 games, there's going to be a little bit of a move to say, hey, look, Ohio State's big win, maybe it wasn't as big. And Oregon over Penn State, there's still just seems like a ton of respect for Penn State. Hey, maybe they should be number 1. And I definitely see it. Although I did want to just point out, I just don't think that Miami deserved to get jumped in that sort of scenario, because Notre Dame looks like they're a little bit better. And, USF, I think you still should respect. So I think that their resume is good, but they'll show more now this week against Florida State.
Yeah, I completely agree from the Miami perspective. I think that the other kind of glaring thing this week was the top riser, which was Ole Miss, going up all the way to number 4. I think that is a good win against LSU, but number 4 in the country is a little bit steep for me, just because of the fact that LSU has shown weaknesses on offense. It feels like all season long, only putting up 20 points in a game that their defense gives them 5 interceptions, and that defense was susceptible to an offense led by Chambliss, who is a good player, but I don't know that I'm ready to crown him as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So their defense being sliced up a little bit against Ole Miss was interesting to see, especially as somebody who thought that going in LSU might have a slight advantage in that game. But congrats to them for rising so far up the rankings. Number 4 for me is just a little bit much, because I don't know that I see Ole Miss as the number 4 team in the country, for that matter. I think Texas A&M is probably at number 6, is right there in consideration for one of those really top spots.
Yeah, maybe them being behind OU and Texas A&M was the right spot, or maybe the spot that I would have put them. A couple other things I definitely noticed: Illinois only rose up 1 for their win against USC, and I felt like it was a big bounce back win for them, and I thought it really showed a lot of character and test for that program. And them going from 23 to 22, and shout out Andrew, you picked that game. I think that was why you're giving me the look. I think that they should have been maybe a little bit higher. And I've been a big fan of, honestly, the way that Notre Dame has bounced back, even with their defense. But should Illinois be behind a 2-2 Notre Dame? I don't think so, even if you do want to rank Notre Dame. And then Mississippi State has a head-to-head over Arizona State. Arizona State is now ranked 25th. Mississippi State is the 3rd highest in the receiving votes category. I think that's close enough. I think I would have hoped a lot of voters put Mississippi State above Arizona State, because that's got to be something that we respect as the season goes on. And they have the same record. I believe, and I believe, right? Or unless Mississippi State's undefeated, they should definitely be above Arizona State regardless, though.
Yeah, they're not, but like they just they walked off, got not walked off in overtime by Tennessee, but like they took Tennessee to overtime. And I think that has got to like count for something as well. I think that a loss to Tennessee, who's one of the best teams in the country, against like Mississippi State, who didn't have those expectations coming into the season, also has that head-to-head win over Arizona State, is something you have to look at from the AP voters and like just maybe question a little bit. It's the bottom of the ranking, so they get messed up. There's a ton of people that vote in these rankings, so it happens sometimes, but like I don't think that it was the exact right outcome, especially given the fact that the head-to-head is literally right there.
I can't believe I've forgotten the Mississippi State Tennessee game, but yeah, you're right. I think that does actually present itself as a good loss. I know some people might debate whether or not that actually exists. I definitely think it does. But I think I've noticed a really weird discrepancy here, and that is if two teams have the same record, so let's say 4-1, and one team has the loss to the other, but the other has a loss to a different team. I'm seeing that the AP poll is rewarding the team that has the head-to-head loss. If hopefully I explained that properly, because we're seeing that with Florida State and Alabama, and it's like, yeah, Florida State lost to Virginia, but they still beat Bama. So I'm kind of like, I know Bama's one loss is to Florida State, so like my brain's not computing. I'm thinking that at least where we are right now, you want to be able to respect that, because then if Alabama's resume and it should with their schedule compared to Florida State's, I know they got Miami this week, so that could change, but just the resume from the season as a whole, if Alabama's is really, really good and much better than Florida State's, and they both have one loss, that's where I could see you potentially throwing out a head-to-head, but not right now. I don't see enough. I mean, I really do think that Florida State should be above Alabama, and the same with Mississippi State over Arizona State. I think you have to respect that.
Yeah, it's tough to make the argument. It's a little bit tougher to make the argument for the latter half of those with the Alabama subject, just because of the fact that Virginia was a team that was barely receiving votes last week and has a loss to NC State, who also like isn't like the greatest football program in the world at this point. So I think they just lost to Virginia Tech this weekend, who lost to Old Dominion. So yeah, that's where those get like skewed a little bit. I can see how Florida State would drop super far after losing to Virginia team, but that was like, I don't know, that was a trap game, my estimation, and it wasn't like that doesn't count for anything in the rankings. It's not like, oh, you lost a trap game, like you only lose 3 spots instead of 10. But it is a drastic fall for FSU to go from 8 to 18 and in 1 week losing to Virginia. But it's also like, how far, if we're going to make the argument of head-to-head, like how far do you let them drop? Because Virginia is not a top 20 team in the nation, and FSU isn't outside of the top 20. So you can't like physically put Virginia over Florida State, even though they just beat them.
I have issues with the AP poll, and I know it's not the final, like, end all be all, especially in, going into week 6. So it is what it is. Some other teams that fell out of the rankings, USC and TCU, I think both were probably warranted, especially with them being lower in the 20s. Did you have any final thoughts on this AP poll before we get out of here? I know I'm looking at some of the other 5-0 teams. They're kind of going to get their respect eventually. Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Iowa State, Indiana.
Yeah, I just kind of am interested to see how the Pac-12 shakes up as a whole. I think Texas Tech like falling right into that, like
Big 12,
just
yeah.
outside. Big 12. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
You say Pac-12?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. The Big 12 gets kind of just how the season goes on for them, because Texas Tech and Iowa State kind of headline that conference right now, but like teams like TCU and just like guys like right outside that are either sitting at 3-1, 4-1, can definitely make just a jump in that conference. So we'll see exactly how those go, but I think it's at least healthy for college football that the Big 12 is making at least some sort of fight. And Texas Tech looks like a legitimate program this year, and Iowa State just behind them also looks half decent this year.
Texas Tech got that oil money, so they'll potentially rise even further. I don't think Arizona State's all that for real anymore, even though I was high on them in the preseason. I'm willing to jump off of it. I'm willing to jump off.